I'm Nick Harcourt, and I got three of my very good friends here. Meiko, who is a musician originally out of Georgia here in the States, who I met in Los Angeles a few years ago and has since lived in Nashville, now in Hamburg, but you're in Spain today, in Malaga. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. I got my mate Camilo Lara, who is also known as Mexican Institute of Sound, and he's in Mexico City. And then I've got Fran Healy from the band Travis, who, again, I've known for a little while, and he lives in Los Angeles now. So the whole point of this conversation, first of all, hey, welcome. Thank you for taking a minute to do this. But the whole point of this conversation is to engage three very different artists on how they are functioning in the new paradigm, in the new world that we're all dealing with. So if I can maybe sort of ask you one at a time, and then we'll just get a conversation going. Fran, you've been in LA for a little while, and I know you've been working on a new Travis album, which is actually coming out. We're doing this in August of 2020. It's due out in October. Yeah. What has been the difference this time around in setting up an album release when you can't tour and you can't go out and do the regular promotion that you would do on an album?
Difference. Well, really, the only difference is the touring side of it. The other side of it is, there's as far as like setting things up, the only difference is the touring side of it. We're not touring now until next maybe year, April, May, June, who knows. That's the only difference. But when you go in a little bit closer to it, making videos, that's really hard to make music videos with a lockdown, especially in California where the rules are so tight. So and then you obviously have to make videos where everyone's in the same video, like actually looking like we're in the same video. That was quite a challenge. But it feels normal to me just at this stage, at this stage of play.
Listen to me. I'm reminiscing, and I'm missing how it used to be. They say when it hits you, you'll know that it's true. You'll know 'cause you feel it. I held you, it was the only thing.
So Meiko, you've been living in Germany for a couple of years now, and I know that in the past you've used studios. You've gone into studios and made records, singles, EPs. You don't have access to that in Germany anyway, I don't think, because you don't have a group of people that you work with, but you've been working from home and starting to figure out how to record yourself, right?
Yes. I think I've lived in Germany for 2 years, and it's kind of been a little difficult to dig into the music scene there. Also, I'm a mom of a 4-year-old, so I've just slowly starting to get into like playing live and meeting people, and then boom, pandemic. So staying home and naturally writing songs all the time, but now it's like, well, shit, what am I going to do with this song? Usually I would just go into a studio and make a proper demo of it. And so I have been slowly learning GarageBand and Logic, and got a mic and, baby steps, but I'm coming up with stuff that I really like. So I'm thinking maybe I just make a record on my own and see if I can actually do it, and get it mixed and mastered and put it out there. So
did you have plans this year that you have not been able to facilitate?
Yes, I was making a record, and I got 3 songs done in Nashville, and then we were thinking, okay, we'll go back to Hamburg, and then I'll go back to Nashville a couple months later and finish it up. And that's when I left Nashville, and 2 weeks later there was a tornado, and 2 weeks after that we were on lockdown. So it was impossible to get back, and really didn't want to go back. to tell you the truth. So, yeah, so feeling stuck, but also feeling really, inspired and resourceful.
I know you're not coming home tonight, but I keep listening for the door, and I don't have a reason to turn out the light, so I'll keep laying here thinking about before.
So Camilo, I know that you had plans this year. You were going to be traveling, and before we started recording, you were telling me that in the last 10 years, you've never been home for more than a week.
Yes, it's crazy. It's like putting a break, like a hardcore stop. But it has been interesting. For me, it's like I at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, well, I'm gonna do these projects and I'm gonna record an album and do and I try, and it was like running into a swamp. It was like so slow, and everything was kind of pointless in a way. So I start to let it go and start to do whatever I had to can fit in half a day, and the rest of the day just have it for myself. And it's been great. After a few months, I start to get into some better rhythm and pace, and yes, the studio has been my therapy. It totally, it's the only place I don't hear about COVID, which is good for all these crazy hyper news that you have all the time, any minute.
So I know you don't have a kid at home, but you have a dog, and you have your wife. How has it been like cramming everybody into an apartment now for 5 months?
Well, it's funny that you discover your home as a place that you can spend time there, and that didn't happen to me in the past. For me, my home was a place that I spend in between tours or in between shows, and now I see it as this place that it can. My wife is working full time there. I'm spending a lot of time, so it changed the purpose of, and it's making, I guess, the whole world reimagine how to spend your time and your quality of living.
Si me encontrara a Dios, le pediré unas quesadillas. Si me encontrara a Dios, le pediré unas quesadillas. Si me encontrara al chamuco, le pediría chicharrón. Si me encontrara al chamuco, le pediría chicharrón.
Let me ask Meiko, you're in Spain right now, obviously, because you're doing family stuff as well. Have you been able to do any shows? Have you done any shows online? Have you been able to connect with your fans in any different ways?
I have. I started when we first went in lockdown in Hamburg. I decided to do a Sunday night series, Together Alone or Alone Together. Can't remember, one of those. And I just did it on Facebook Live, and more and more people started showing up, and it was really cool, and it felt like a community. I was seeing familiar names instead of faces, and I felt like I could, I don't know, somewhat perform and connect with people, which is the whole point of being a, artist. And it was really cathartic for me. And I know that a lot of people have written me telling me, it was good for them too, because they're stuck at home. And I did 20 of those shows, and then I kind of got burned out, and I took a break this past week, and I think I'll just kind of maybe once a month or something. But yeah. And then as far as live shows go, I did do a couple in Berlin where it was spaced out, outside, outdoors. And honestly, like, it had been a while since I played a live show, and it was really stressful because now I'm like, paranoid about people talking to me or being close to me. And it was a tough it was tough for me, even though I also appreciated being on stage by myself and looking out into an audience and being able to just hear a clap or hear a laugh instead of it just being all online. That was nice, but it was something's changed in my mind where it's going to take some time to adjust, as with everybody and everything, if it ever goes back to.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really knows, obviously, at this point, how things are going to pan out as far as live performances are concerned. There's a lot of people trying some unique things, a lot of drive-in concerts here in the States right now. And I'm also seeing shows where people are sort of boxing. They're putting little boxes, so everybody has a box that they sit in. It's almost like, for those of you who've been in LA, obviously a couple of you, well, all of you, it's like the Hollywood Bowl, where you have a box and you're there with your 4 people. And I'm seeing some concerts they did in the UK, I think last week, where they're doing things like that. It's just a completely different experience, though, obviously, for the audience and for the performer. I wanted to ask you, before I jump back to Camilo, Meiko, when you look at your career at this moment as somebody who's been, largely independent and just building a career and managing it. I know your manager is here in LA, but you do a lot of your own stuff. Where do you see it today, as compared with how you felt your career was a year ago?
I guess I feel more self-sufficient, which is it can only be a good thing. Before, I was depending on producers and musicians, and that's a sad thing at the same time, because then, you have all these friends that you've made in your career and you're not giving them work. Because I'm learning how to do things on my own and feel more comfortable now doing it on my own. And, so that's changed a lot in the past year. And, it's bittersweet being a more self-sufficient, recording your own stuff artist.
Have you thought about pivoting at all and maybe working in a different area of the music business? Have you thought about composing? Have you thought about doing more work in television and film? Because I know you've written songs for television.
Yeah, I would love to do stuff like that. It's just part of doing those kinds of things is going out and meeting people and shooting the bull and just hanging and word of mouth and just being a face that people see. And if I'm not doing that, which I wasn't anyway after I left LA, you kind of lose, you're lost. Your name doesn't pop up in people's minds. So I would love to compose stuff for other people, but how does that work? I cold call or cold email people like, hey, I'm a composer too, and I could write you some pretty good songs. Like, it's strange. So I'll just do it on my own until at some point maybe someone gets in touch and says, will you compose me a song? And then I'll say yes.
So Camilo, you gig with a band. You gig with Mexican Institute of Sound, which is sometimes just you DJing, but when you go out on tour, you have a full band that you perform with. I will say as well that Camilo has one of the best cameos that you will ever see in a film, ever. That's somebody out chasing me for money, no doubt. Camilo is the DJ, like playing yourself, like an animated version of yourself in the movie Coco. If you've ever seen that movie, anybody who's listening or watching right now, he actually has a cameo as himself as the DJ at the, what's the dance? What is the segment in the movie where that happens?
Yeah, it's at the party of De La Cruz, the bad guy. But I'm very flattered that I'm actually pretty skinny in Coco. I'm deaf, but I mean,
yeah. But I mean, it's one of the coolest things. If that was me, I would be really happy about that. I know you are. But from the point of view of DJing and performing live, this is a guy who was just saying he hasn't been home for more than a week in 10 years. When you look at where we're at right now, and perhaps where you thought you would be this year, what were your plans for this year?
Well, I guess it's been sweet and sour. I was working a couple of films that got delayed, and some TV also got delayed. But at the same time, I'm doing a lot of tracks for other artists. I'm producing a lot and working. I mean, I'm pretty used to do the working, the distance working, and so that has been fun. I'm not a live kind of person. Like I see all the people doing the lives. I mean, I can't imagine myself DJing on a live thing. It's just like the most absurd and pointless thing to do. And when I play live, my show is pretty hardcore kind of. It's between cumbia and punk rock, and I like to get sweat and like throw my sweat to everyone and hug people. So I would look horrible just doing that on my living room. Um, so I guess I don't know. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot how to adjust to this new normality. I personally always missed whatever I don't have. So now I miss the shows. And when I had the show, I missed to be at home. But I do miss that thing. Like for me, shows needs to be this experience, almost like religious, like you see the light, like kind of a preacher thing. And I don't think I have seen one single live uh, broadcast that has made me chill. I mean, I see amazing musicians, people doing really great music, but there's it's like watching some other thing that is not a live experience. I wouldn't bet my money on that for the change of the world. I really want to be analog again and do analog shows.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned about yourself as an artist, and perhaps just as a guy, in the last 5 months with having to adapt?
That I never adapt well. Uh, I guess I'm still digesting how it's gonna be my digital me. It's funny. I thought I did, but I was a kind of a social media person that I was used to deal with it. But now that I have it full time, it's kind of not my cup of tea. And I'm still digesting how to behave and how to be my internet persona.
Yeah, I know you've always been active on social media. Have you pulled back a little bit?
I completely stopped for 3 months on Twitter. For me, Twitter was so toxic at the beginning, and now I'm slowly getting back. And but it was horrible between what is happening in America with all the Mexican people and the COVID. I mean, it was just negative, and I felt like I didn't want. It's like watching CNN all the time. Like it's pointless because after two tweets, you know what is what is happening.
Maybe I could get you to Meiko. Just tell me yourself. Anything in particular you've learned about yourself as an artist, or as a mom, or as an American living in Europe right now?
I've learned to say I'm Canadian when someone asks me where I'm from, because then that just stops. They're like, oh, and then they'll continue on with whatever else they're talking about. But if I say I'm American, then they're like, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So it's a nice just hard stop. But I guess what I've learned is in the beginning of this whole thing, I felt like I wanted to acquire stuff. I was like, oh God, the end of the world's coming. Like, we need, not like I was the crazy woman in the grocery store getting toilet paper, but it was like, what can we use to make our lives happier? Like, should we get a trampoline in our house? Like, is there, you know, what do we need? And I felt like I was just constantly thinking about, what can I buy? What can I buy? What can I get on Amazon? And then there was a couple of months of that. And me and my husband were thinking, like, what would happen if we just stopped buying non-essential things? Like, we only paid for food and whatever soap and stuff you absolutely need, and then you just stop buying everything else. So we did this thing that's we're doing a no new for the rest of the year of 2020, and we're not buying anything. So when I'm walking down the street and I'm like, damn, we really need a shelf, because a shelf would look really cool. Our bookcase would look really cool in our hallway, and you know, we need a place for all these books. I see a bookshelf on the street, and I'm like, I'm hauling that bookshelf 30 blocks to my apartment. I'm going to haul it up 89 stairs, and I'm going to put it in the hallway. And so I'm doing little things like that. And it's been really interesting. I'm sewing up jeans that have holes and socks that have holes, when usually I would just throw them away. I'm like, what am I doing? You can, if you get a hole in your sock, you can just sew it up. So little things like that I've changed in my mind. Like, I'm less wasteful.
I'm going to come back to Camilo just to finish this off. I just want to say, obviously, you know, this is not like Dave Letterman where I have to hold up the album right now, but I know there's I'm dating myself, right? Dave Letterman, who's he? Fran, you've got the new Travis album, 10 songs, coming in October. Meiko, do you have anything out right now, or anything new that's coming?
I put an EP out in May called Weird World, and it's just 3 songs I was going to have as an album, but that didn't pan out, so now it's a 3-song EP. I figured I'm not going to sit on these songs until I'm able to get in the studio to finish the album, so I just released them. And on to the next thing.
And then Camilo, I know you just put a single out called Dios, and you're also you've just finished 2 remixes for Madness.
Yes,
and they're like
I'm very excited
older songs, not like new Madness. You just remixed Our House, and then what was the other one? Must Be Love. I can't wait to hear the Mexican take on those songs. Anything else coming?
Well, yeah, I'm releasing a bunch of songs. It happened the same to me. I just decided to put the record out in October, so I'm putting song by song and doing the video and all the game. Like, I have the time to do it, so I'm doing interviews and stuff that I never have the time to do.
Yeah, well, thank you for taking the time, and I want to thank all of you. You know, I love all 3 of you as friends and musicians. And Meiko, hang in there. I know how rough it is to live in another country. Trust me, I'm still not used to it. And and Fran, thank you. And Camilo, I'll see you guys out there somewhere soon, I think. Thank you so much.